Hi, and welcome to The Bright Balloon, a podcast where I'm sharing bright ideas for your balloon business. My name is Sarah Meyer, and I'm a balloon business owner like you, and I love the creative side of what I do, but I really love the business side, which seems to be the part where most people struggle. So I'm here to help. Each week, I'm bringing you an episode full of bite-sized tips you can use to make improvements in your business. I want you to make more money, eliminate stress, and learn along with me as we grow our creative businesses together. Welcome to The Bright Balloon, presented by 17 Hats. Hello and welcome to another episode. Today, I am going to be sharing my experience when it comes to booking large jobs. So when I started out, the idea of booking a $2,000 job just seemed impossible, let alone a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 job. That just seemed like it would never happen, and I literally didn't know that it could happen. But recently, I have been booking larger jobs, and I would say like $1,500 jobs are really my sweet spot. I still do like $300, $400, $500 jobs, but I would say consistently I am doing several multi-$1,000 jobs a month. And I want to talk about how I found those clients, how I prep for those jobs, why they're a little bit different, and then how to get those jobs over and over and over again, because that is where the real money is. It is in that multi-year contract or those annual jobs that you can bank on getting every single year. That's where that consistent income comes from. So I'm going to get into all of the details and also talk about my upcoming class that I'm doing in Texas for Qualitex. I want to share some of the details about what to expect at that as well, since it is a class geared towards large scale installations. So let's take a break and hear from a sponsor, and then we will get into the episode. If you haven't checked out Havin A Party Wholesale by now, what are you waiting for? They have all of the brands that we know and love as balloon professionals, and they even offer free shipping on orders over $200. So the next time you need balloons, make sure to check them out. You can click the link in the show notes and tell them that the Bright Balloon podcast sent you. All right, welcome back. So first off, I wanted to chat about a class that I am teaching for Qualitex at the end of this month, and registration is open right now. It is on May 24th, and there are people flying in for the class. I know when I was new in balloons, it never dawned on me that I could actually travel somewhere to take a class. I always just looked for local opportunities, but the idea is that the class registration fee is super low to make traveling a little bit more realistic. So tickets for the class are only $99, and it is a full day workshop, and it is hands-on. So now I have kind of been able to piece together what the class is actually going to be, and I'm excited to share. So several years ago, I think like 4 years ago now, I submitted an application to be a designer at the World Balloon Convention, which really my goal was just to apply. That in itself was a big process, and I actually was selected. So I was selected to do this decor for the final night, and the theme was Let Your Dreams Blossom. And I designed the whole thing, and I knew exactly how it was going to look and feel, and I was so excited. And then COVID hit, and World Balloon Convention was canceled. So my design never came to be. And then in its place, a couple years later, Balloon Wonderland popped up. So that was a large-scale build that I was able to be a team leader on. I also participated in the Big Balloon build in Vincennes, Indiana, and then I recently hosted my own Big Balloon build in Lake Geneva. So since first getting chosen to do that design and where I am today, a lot has changed. And I am so relieved that World Balloon Convention never happened. I mean, I'm still really disappointed, but I wouldn't have been prepared. And I don't think Qualitex would have let me go into a situation where it wasn't going to work out. Like, they would have had team members, they would have had a crew to help me along the way, but I just didn't know then what I know now. Now I'm much more prepared to design on a large scale, to come up with recipes so that teams can work together. I understand how to manage multiple teams at once. So all that to say, my class at the end of May is going to be that design that I originally created for World Balloon Convention. So after 4 years stuck away in a drawer, I'm excited to pull that design back out, dust it off, and finally bring it to life. So those of you that are attending the class will actually be the crew, and we will put together a large scale installation in the course of a day. And not only will you get tips and tricks about design elements, but we'll also talk about repetition and color and things that you can do when you're designing on a large scale, because it is a little bit different. It's one thing to create an arch for someone's living room. It's much different to create a fully immersive world that's going to fill up a stage or a banquet room or an entrance lobby to a big event. And what I always think is cool about these classes is that you get the pictures. So you get to use those photos to promote. So if you've never done a large scale build, you get to be on the crew and participate, and then use those photos as your own and put them on your website or pitch them to clients to show off that you really are capable of something on this scale. So I'm very excited for the class. I can't wait to bring it to life. It is, if Alice in Wonderland and Tim Burton had a balloon baby, it would be this design. I'm so excited. It's kind of weird and whimsical and fun and flowery, and I'm just very, very excited. So if that sounds like fun to you, you can check out the show notes for the registration link and then book your flight, and I will see you in Texas. So let's get into the actual meat of this episode, which is going to be about big builds, large scale installs. So the first step of this is how do you find those huge jobs, right? Like, that was always my question. I can book the birthday party, I can book the arch, I can book the graduation display, but how do I get those large jobs that I see on Instagram or those crazy things on people's websites? So all of my experience, now this isn't always true, but all of my experience with let's say jobs over $5,000, they have always been corporate, and a lot of the times they have been because of event planners. So event planners are good and bad because they want what they want, and a lot of times they will pay the price to get it, but they will also push you. They will put you in uncomfortable situations because sometimes the things that they want are not practical. They're things you've never done, and that can get a little bit frightening. But all of my best paying jobs have been from event planners or corporate clients. So that is one piece of the puzzle. And knowing who to approach for these large jobs is the first step. You're probably not going to sell a $10,000 job to someone planning their kid's birthday. You could, but it's probably unlikely. So where are you going to look for these corporate clients? The first place that I would look is in your current set of contacts. So maybe you did a corporate job and it was 2 columns. Don't assume that they don't have a $10,000 budget, and don't assume that they've already thought about and dismissed the idea of balloons. It's really amazing how you have to connect the dots for people. Even after hosting the big balloon build in my own town, I am still having to connect those dots for people. It's not enough to just show them these incredible balloon installations. You actually have to tell them, I could do this for you. That a lot of times is the first time that anybody even thinks about balloons. They have no idea what the possibilities are. They're also, balloons are pricey, but on a grand scale, they're pretty cost effective. When you compare balloons to flowers, there's no comparison. Like, you can fill a room with balloons. You really can't fill a room with flowers. It would just be millions of dollars. The only thing that I think is more cost effective than balloons is lighting, because you can fill a room with beautiful lighting and like gobos and texture on the walls. But I like when you use both. And that's another thing that event planners usually bring, is that they light your displays so they look that much better. So first, look at your current network and see if there is anyone there that you can pitch a large installation. So that's why, like, coming to, say, a class like I'm doing, a workshop or a convention, getting those photos and having them be your work or partially your work, or even just saying that you were on the team that created this and showing that to the planners and the corporate clients, that is enough to get their wheels spinning. Another thing that sometimes you need to connect the dots for is like, why would they do this? So sometimes saying like, this was a fundraiser that I was involved in, or this was a holiday party, or this was a campaign that a corporate office did for a specific holiday. Or I remember I did a lot of work when employees were returning to the office after COVID was kind of dying down. So sometimes giving them the idea of what they could possibly use a big install for is also part of connecting the dots for them. Now, you can do cold emailing. There's an awesome episode on here with Rachel. It was just a couple episodes ago that we will link to in the show notes. And she talks about cold emailing either on Instagram or reaching out. I mean, that's just networking and getting to know people and getting to know their businesses so you can reach out that way. I think showing people examples is really, really powerful when they see photos. But again, don't forget to connect those dots. Don't just post a photo of a cool install on Instagram. Make sure to utilize that caption and say, I was part of this installation and I can't wait to do more work like this in our local community. You really have to be deliberate with how you kind of handhold and paint the picture for people. So the other thing, unfortunately, that plays a huge part is just years of experience. I'm 7, almost 8 years into business, and I'm now just getting these consistent larger jobs. So it does take time to build your network, also to build a nice website so people have a place to go. They find me on Google. Instagram has been huge for my business, and then being part of my chamber and networking with local business owners. Now, if you land a job or you think someone has a larger budget, the second piece of the puzzle is, how do you charge for this? And in general, the price is the price, right? If someone wants a column, the price is the price. But with larger installations, there are additional items that you don't want to forget to charge for that I have been guilty of not charging for. And then you feel it when you're on site and you're doing a $2,000 job, but it feels like a $5,000 job. You only make that mistake once. So some of those things that you might need to consider is additional services. So something like an installation fee. If you're going to be at a venue for 6 hours installing a job, that's very different than dropping something off at someone's door. So even if they are just ordering columns, ordering 2 columns is one thing, but ordering 50 columns is something totally different. There's also going to be additional fees for renting U-Hauls, or maybe they want you to take everything down. You have to go back and strike that, which is basically a second installation fee. It's the same amount of work. It's just taking it down instead of putting it up. Some events want you to be available for touch-ups. Like maybe they have a multi-day event, or maybe they have an install that they want outside, but then they're going to move it inside. Like all of that additional service is where you make more money with corporate clients. The other thing to keep in mind is help. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. If you need additional hands, like I couldn't install 30 columns by myself outdoors. Like I would physically get exhausted lifting paver bases for that long. So factor in the price of help. And your help can be your mom, it can be your kids. It doesn't have to be another balloon artist. It certainly can be. That's always my preference. For a couple reasons. I feel more comfortable hiring balloon people, and also they're my friends. Like it's an opportunity to work with other people in the industry. And you always run into situations where just having a second brain, someone to help you troubleshoot, is a good thing to have. And when they have balloon experience, they'll be more likely to help you solve those problems. Another thing that I have started charging extra for is outdoor decor. I slap on an additional 20% fee for anything that's outdoors because it is by far more than 20% more work. And I find that a lot of corporate jobs are outdoors. They have picnics, colleges have like reunions or homecoming, and they always want this outdoor decor. And it's not true that it's not the same thing. Indoor and outdoor is a totally different beast. All that weight, all those sandbags, all of the walking across campuses, like that takes additional time and a lot of energy. So make sure to charge additional for additional services. Now, in terms of the actual logistics of taking money, I have changed my process a little bit. So this is going to be a bit of a tangent, but I think it's worthwhile. I recently was part of a 17 Hats boot camp where we were talking about workflows. And I'm going to record an entire episode on workflows because I thought that the boot camp was so valuable. But basically, if you picture your business like a giant funnel, the top section of the funnel is going to be your lead experience. Then you are going to, you're not going to capture everybody. Some people aren't going to fill out your inquiry form. They're not going to call. So you lose a small percentage. Then the next step of the funnel is going to be your booking process. So what does it look like for someone to officially book your services? And they're not all going to book. So then you lose a couple more. Your funnel gets a little narrower. And then you are into the onboarding experience. So this is, in my situation, this is the design. This is the reminders. This is talking about like where I'm going to park. Like that's all the onboarding. And then there is the final part of the funnel, and that is the fulfillment. So that is the actual jobs that you are doing, setting up the balloons, taking them down, following up. That's fulfilling the actual request. So that is your full lead experience. What I realized during that boot camp is that I had reversed two of those steps. I went from the lead experience to the inquiry experience, like them asking if I was available. And I went right into the onboarding experience. So that's where I'm designing, where I'm talking about logistics, where I'm giving them all of the information. And then it was only after all of that that I moved to my booking experience, which for the sake of this episode, that essentially meant that I was designing an entire job, planning all the logistics, in some cases buying the materials before they ever paid me any money, before they officially booked. So the biggest thing that I learned from this boot camp was, first of all, I and you need to determine what it means to be booked. Is it that they accepted a quote? Have they paid you money? Have they paid in full? Have they paid you $100 deposit? Like what does it mean for someone to be booked? Because I think we're all guilty of having those clients that are kind of like in this gray area. Like you're communicating and they're going to book you, but they haven't paid you, but you're pretty sure it's going to work out. And then sometimes they don't email you back for a couple days and you start freaking out, but then they email you and they want some changes to the design. So you do that. And we wait too long for ask for money, which is the point that I'm trying to get to here. So I have recently changed my process to align more with that 4-step process of the lead, then the booking, then the onboarding, then the fulfillment. So the way that I technically book people is that I ask them for money and I try to move this process along quicker. And this is recent. This is like in the last 3 weeks I've started doing this because I find that corporate clients, and those are the ones with the money, they drag things out. And it's not because they're slow. It's because there's multiple committees and they're not essentially in charge of their budget all the time. And sometimes they get it approved, but then it has to go to their business office, who then needs a W-9. And this process can get really, really drawn out. And you are the person who's paying the price because you're the one not getting any money this entire time. And there's nothing to keep them from just being like, actually, just kidding, we're going to go a different direction. Or this has never happened to me, but I have heard some horror stories where people design the entire event, don't get it, and then they see their designs online that were replicated by a different balloon artist. So essentially the client has taken their design for free and then shopped around and gotten a lower bid, and then another balloon artist does it. And, could this be the balloon artist's fault? Maybe, but I think typically we don't know, because I have definitely gotten photos from people and been like, hey, we want this. Can you do it? And it's like, yeah, no problem. Never thinking maybe someone else came up with this design. Like maybe someone else actually put this proposal together for them. Maybe this isn't their Pinterest board that they made themselves. So that's a hard situation, but you don't want to be the person who is getting stiffed in that situation. So what I have started doing now is getting on the phone with people. They fill out my form. That's my lead process. My booking process is now setting up a phone call or sometimes a Zoom. I think corporate people are very, very comfortable getting on a Zoom. And I think that builds trust. They can see you, they can hear you, they know the process. And at the end of the call, rarely, if ever, have we decided on every single thing they want for their event. I usually leave it with, I am going to send you a proposal, but your date isn't secured until you put down your deposit. So would you like me to send you a save the date deposit so that you can lock in your date? And they almost always say yes. And more businesses are starting to be able to pay with credit cards like pretty quickly. So at least in that case, you're getting a deposit up front before you're doing all that design work. And then they're very unlikely to switch to a different company once you're into that situation, because in their mind, they've already paid you. And it's not the full amount, but it puts a little bit of insurance in there. And worst case, if they bail, you make your deposit, you don't give that back. And I have been cautioned not to call it a deposit because I think there's like legal ramifications around that. So I don't call it anything. I just say, save the date with $100 or save the date with $500. I do it depending on the scale of the job. I'm not going to let someone save the date for $100 for a $10,000 event that's in 2 weeks, right? Like in that case, that's very different. Brides, a lot of times I offer them a pretty low save the date because their wedding's like 2 years away and I just frankly don't want to deal with it yet because they're going to change their mind. I'm going to change details. Like they're going to change their colors. And so I usually try to just like push off weddings until they're like within 6 months. But corporate, I felt very uncomfortable asking for a deposit or a save the date or a retainer fee, whatever you want to call it. And I don't know why. And having experimented with this, I can tell you, no one has batted an eye. No one has flinched when I've asked them for money up front. Now, I know some people also ask for money up front before they even get on a phone call with people. I don't do that. I don't know that that would be very well received in my area. So I'm more comfortable with taking the phone call, chatting through the event, building that trust, then taking that retainer fee to save their date. Now they're booked, right? That is my booking process. And then we go into the onboarding, which is all the design, all the back and forth, all of the committee meetings and the multiple phone calls. Like that has been a big shift in my business that has really worked out well. All right, that was a bit of a tangent, but I hope that was helpful. Let's take a quick break, and then we are going to get into the last bits here. So I'm going to talk about what I actually pitch, like what I send people and how I send it. And then we'll talk about booking these over and over and over again.
Hi, this is Jeff from Balloon Suite by Asset Lab. We help balloon decor businesses bring in more sales and leads with a high-tech toolkit that includes your website, your domain, your advertising, your search engine optimization. Our plans start at $50 a month, and we'll even buy out your Wix or Squarespace or GoDaddy subscription to help you get onto a platform that's made for and optimized for your business in balloon decor. Check us out at balloonsuite.com.
All right, welcome back. So now I have walked through my inquiry or my lead capture phase, and then I just talked through my booking process. So they're officially booked. They've put down a fee. They've left a deposit, whatever you want to call it. And now it's time for me to actually design the large scale job. Again, I am not sending mood boards and layouts for jobs that are less than $1,500. And even that, a lot of times you don't. Like $1,500, you get there really quick. That's a few columns, a couple arches, and some centerpieces. So I am not always like designing for that. A lot of times that looks like attachments on an email. Like, how about this one, and this one, but in your colors. For large scale jobs, though, I like to really paint the picture. So I do this in Canva, and I pull in some inspiration photos, and they're not always balloon photos. Like sometimes it's a picture of, Miley Cyrus at a photo shoot with like fringe and chrome balloons in the background. Like sometimes I try to just kind of like paint the picture of the vibe. And then I will pull photos. I will pull colors. Like I actually have little thumbnails of balloons from it's from my download, my balloon color chart that I created with Erin from Young and Wild Balloon Company. So I use that as my actual like color menu, but I also can use those same swatches to kind of lay out exactly what color balloons I'm going to use. That way they can see and they can compare their colors. A lot of corporate clients are pretty picky about that, and it just makes the process a lot easier for me. I feel like sometimes when I'm just like, oh, dark blues, light blues, some pinks and peaches, that actually makes it harder for me later on in the process, because then I have to go back and figure out what blue was I actually talking about? What pinks and peaches? And I actually need to sometimes go and get clarification from them versus just putting the exact colors on the initial proposal. It kind of saves me a step. So I put my little balloon thumbnails on there, and then I will a lot of times use work that I've done in the past. Sometimes I will use I don't know what to call it. It's not clip art, but if you're a member of Balloon Boss Mastermind, you have access to other Canva templates where it's more of an editable graphic of a column, of an arch. You can change the colors so it looks more like theirs. And I put that all together into a Canva PDF, and I attach that. And I also put pricing on there. I always add additional items because there have been times where clients have said, actually, we love all of it. We just want it all. And that's the best. Most of the time they don't. Most of the time they pick the first few things that I put on there, and then they leave off kind of the little bonus upsells, but you never know. So I think it's better to give them options because then they're actually kind of designing their own event. They're telling you like, yeah, you proposed 7 columns, we think we need 10. Or instead of 3 arches, we're going to scale it back to 2. You gave us the low end centerpiece and the high end centerpiece. I think we're going to do like 5 of the high end and then the rest the low end. So it gives them a little bit more control, and also it gives them the vocabulary. That's another thing that proposals do. If someone has ever tried to order a balloon column from you, you probably have heard them talk about like balloon towers or balloon poles or balloon, structures. Like they don't know what to call them. People call everything a balloon arch. Like they want garlands and they call it a balloon arch. They want a column and they call it a balloon arch. So by putting everything onto a proposal where you're using specific names, that way they can name them. You're giving them that vocabulary to say, oh, we want 2 crazy towers and a narrow arch and 3 short centerpieces, right? Like whatever the names of your things are. And I know this works because one of my pieces of language is my nugget, right? I call my 6-foot balloon garland a nugget. And I had a large install, actually today, I'm exhausted. I had a large install and they called me 2 weeks ago and they were like, we want 18 nuggets. And it was the easiest job I've ever booked. And they told me the colors. Like it was so fun. It was so easy. And they were able to use my language, which made the booking process incredibly simple. So give them that language, give them that proposal, and then give them, I don't want to say a deadline, that sounds harsh, but give them a follow-up date. Like either you check in with them in 2 days, like take a look at this proposal. I fully understand you have to run it by your team. I'll follow up with you on Monday to see if you have any questions. Or a gentle reminder that their date isn't booked. Like if all you do to book is a quote, you might want to remind them that they haven't booked anything yet. Or whatever your language is, make sure to put it in there so that there's an end time. If you use quotes in 17 hats, you can actually put a due date on the quote so that after that time it expires. They can't, accept it anymore. So I think putting some sort of terms on there is good so that they know they don't have unlimited time to decide. Because when you're talking about a $5,000 job, you don't want them confirming that the week before. You will spend a lot more money in orders. You will spend a lot of time stressing. It will be a lot harder to book additional help. It might even be hard to book a U-Haul. Like time is better when it comes to these huge jobs. Especially one of the things that I always run into is like, do I have enough arches? Like I do a college job every year. And a couple weeks before, instead of 3 30-foot arches, they wanted 5 30-foot outdoor arches, which like, yes, I wanted the paycheck, but that was a lot. That was a lot of additional materials and bases to build right before the event. So put a deadline on there or an expiration date on your quote. Now, let's talk about some of the nuances of a big job. One of the things that you don't want to get sucked into is that just because someone has a big budget, it doesn't mean that they're your ideal client. Some of my most, I don't even want to go down the path, but like the jobs that have made me the craziest have been some of my biggest. And some of them, they aren't worth it. Like $5,000 sounds like a lot, but if you are meeting every week, if they are changing things on you, if they think they basically own you because they have a huge job, it's just not worth it. Like, you would be better off doing 5 $1,000 jobs that aren't stressful. So don't just take a job just because you think it's going to be a big paycheck, because if your time counts for anything, a lot of times you can start losing money on these large jobs. I also find that event planners and corporate people are the most likely to kind of just like change things at the last minute or ask for special favors, like, "Oh, could you just do like another garland over there? It just looks really empty in that corner." And you're like, "Well, no, like, you didn't order that. So no." Like, I just feel like any situation where people have asked for freebies or special treatment, it has been some of these larger jobs. So I think you just need to be prepared, and not assume you're going to get taken advantage of, but just put yourself in a situation where you're not able to get taken advantage of, and make that very clear in your booking process. Now, let's talk about what I think the most important part of all of this is, and that is how to get these jobs over and over again. Now, most huge jobs don't start as huge jobs. That's what I was talking about at the beginning, where it comes with time. Pretty much every job that I have that's big, it's because I've worked with the planner multiple times, and the first job wasn't big, the second job wasn't big, the third job was a little bigger, fourth job was small again, and then all of a sudden the 13th job is the biggie, right? Because they trust you, and all of a sudden they're like, maybe balloons. Maybe this is the one where we go crazy with the balloons. So it's not always just going to be straight out the gate. So you have to build some trust with event planners, I would say, for sure, and even corporate clients. So to get those jobs over and over, first of all, they build up over the years. They might not start at $10,000, but they might get there in 5 years. And my advice in this area is to just follow up relentlessly. So after a job, ask for feedback. One of the things I like to ask is there anything I could have done to make it easier on you? I think corporate and event planners really like to hear that, because I think if you just ask, like, was everything great? They're just going to be like, yeah. But if you say, is there anything that could have been done to make it easier? I think they're more likely to give you feedback, because it's not necessarily negative feedback. It might just be an idea that they have. Like, actually, it would have been easier had you come and taken everything down. That was actually a lot more work than we thought. Or like, actually, it would have been better if you set up the day before. Next time, let's have you set up the day before. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, they just opened the door for a next time. And then you can have that conversation. The other thing is to ask for a next time. Some of my bigger jobs, like some of my $2,000-$3,000, like really kind of easy jobs, are proms. And a lot of times those are volunteer teachers who are the prom chairs. And if you ask them after you finish setting up, would it be okay if I reach out to you again for next year? A lot of times they're going to say yes, and then you can pencil them in. And I don't pencil people in on their dates. Like, I don't want to know that I have a big potential job on May 15th. I want to know that I need to follow up with them on January 1st. So that's what I pencil in, is the follow-up dates. And that is on you. That is on us as the service providers. Never, ever assume that people are going to follow up with you, because they've probably forgotten the name of your business by the time their event is even over. Or they've moved to a different job. A lot of times it's in events industry specific, I think, because they burn people out. Who you worked with from year to year is going to change. So if you ask to secure the date early, you're more likely to get that job. And if you ask for a deposit early, or if you even send a quote, like I just did this for a school, they're not able to pay me until the next fiscal year starts, which for colleges, it's like in July. So they can't pay me now for a job next September. So I said, what if I send a quote saving the date, and then I will set the invoice to generate on July 1st. And they were excited about that. So because I sent one email 6 months in advance, I secured a $4,000 job. And that's an annual job. So that is my advice that I want to, send you with. It's not about getting these humongous jobs. Like, you don't need to be waiting for your $20,000 job to roll along. What I think is more worth your while is making sure that $5,000 job books you for the next 4 years. There's your $20,000. Or more realistic, what if your $1,000 job books you once a quarter? That's $4,000 a year. And over the next, 5 years, there's your $20,000. So there's this appeal, there's this draw to have these ginormous jobs, but really big jobs can be a headache. And sometimes they're not as profitable as small jobs because you need more help, you need more materials, you need more bases, you need a U-Haul, you need a lot of additional stuff. So don't beat yourself up if you're not landing these $15,000 jobs, because a $3,000 job every single year for the lifetime of your business could be really, really valuable. It's probably easier and it could be, it's consistent. So I think all the money is in the follow-up, and that comes in keeping track of your jobs. I do it a couple different ways. I have some systems set up in 17 Hats, which is my CRM that I adore, and that reminds me to reach out. I also have a whiteboard. Super old school. I just have a whiteboard in my office where I just write down all of my big clients, and I make sure that they are my top priority. So I think that's hard for people to consider too. Like, you have an inbox of inquiries overflowing, but you need to make these other people your priority. And you don't need to do this when you first start because you just don't have that much business. It's when you're years and years in. Mike Michalowicz, who's like my favorite author, and he wrote The Pumpkin Plan. He calls these clients your big pumpkins. And one of his tips in his book is to play favorites. So I think, in terms of pricing, the price is the price. Like, I charge everyone the same. I think that's fair. But in terms of playing favorites, I'm looking at my list right now of my 5 clients that if they call, I'm answering the phone. If it's 2 a.m., I'm picking up the phone. If they need a job done tomorrow, I'm going to do it. I play favorites. And if that means that I'm slow to respond to another email from someone I've never met before, that's how I choose to do my business at this point. It's the only way that I can stay sane and also book that consistent recurring money. The other thing that's awesome about corporate is a lot of times it's the same every single year. So the first one is always the hardest, and then a lot of times the next year is like, hey, are you interested in balloons for your 4th of July country club event? Would you like the same thing as last year? Cool. Here's the invoice. And all of a sudden you're booking these 2, 3, $10,000 jobs with 1 or 2 emails. And that is when stuff starts feeling pretty incredible. So if you're not there yet, don't sweat it. Remember, $500 jobs, $200 jobs, they can add up to thousands and thousands of dollars if you keep your clients happy and you go out of your way to make their experience easy. And building that trust is what gets you to some of these larger scale jobs. So don't get upset if you're seeing other people doing all this giant stuff on Instagram. A lot of times they live in big cities. They are working with event planners. They have connections through networking that maybe have to do with their previous job, or you never know. So don't compare yourself to other people, and just treat your clients like they're your clients. Treat them really well. And don't forget to get that repeat business over and over and over. That is really the secret sauce. All right, I am going to wrap it up. Just a reminder to check out the link in the show notes for the Texas class that I'm teaching. I'm very, very excited. I have been picturing this install in my brain for 4 years, and I can't wait to see it to come to life. And I hope some of you are going to be there. So I will wrap it up, and I will catch you in the next episode. Thanks for listening. As usual, I tried to keep it bright and light. If you are interested in bonus episodes, check out our Patreon group where I release an additional episode every single week, and you unlock more than 50 archived episodes as soon as you join. Check out the link in the show notes wherever you're listening.